fear often isn't a welcomed guest. And it makes sense because it's uncomfortable, it's usually based in the unknown and the unfamiliar. And so what we tend to do is we tend to try to run away from it or actually distract ourselves from it in some way. However, here's my encouragement. Fear is actually intended to help. So the best way to go about dealing with it is, rather than trying to avoid it and push it away, it's to face it, feel it, and flow with it. Because when we're able to face it, we're able to recognize that it's actually trying to help us in some way, or it's trying to be informative in some way. So we definitely don't want to push that information away because it's so incredibly valuable for us. Now, in my field of psychology, they often talk about irrational fears. Now, my take on that is that there's actually no such thing as an irrational fear. If you're feeling fear, there's a reason for it. So either your environment, such as our current environment with COVID-19, is creating a lot of uncertainty or fear within you, or you're imagining fearful things. So if you're imagining fearful things, our body's naturally going to react to what we focus on. It's no different than watching a movie. We know the movie isn't real. We know it's actors, and we know there's a set and there's a bunch of cameras and all that type of stuff around. However, we can still feel the emotion when we're sitting in a theater because we buy into the story. If we're telling ourselves a scary story, or the world around us is telling us a scary story, it's natural, absolutely natural, to respond with fear. And this is why we want to allow ourselves to feel the fear. And it's important to recognize that fear is neither good nor bad. It's just an emotional feeling experience. It's trying to help us, and the only way to actually embrace the information that it has to share with us is to actually go with the fear and flow with the fear. Again, we want to face it, feel it, and flow with it. Now, when you flow with it, what this allows the emotional intensity to move through and dissipate out of your nervous system. So if our surroundings around us are fearful, or the stories we're receiving or even telling ourselves are fearful stories, then we want to be able to go with that natural response and that natural emotional energy. Because when we flow with it, we no longer resist it. And we're able to recognize things we wouldn't otherwise. When we don't resist it and we allow the intensity of that emotion to flow through. Now, I'm not talking about diving into the story that the fear is getting created through. If we dive into that story, we're just going to generate more fear. What we want to do is we want to just become observers. Observe the story that's revolving around you or running through your mind. As you observe this story, you'll start to recognize where the roots of fear are coming from. And there's always a root to the fear. So when we understand what the rational root of fear is, and we allow the emotional intensity to move through, it actually unlocks our creative brain. It's very hard to respond to fear when we're in that reactive, fearful response. So when we let the emotional intensity flow through, it literally unlocks our innovative, creative, and imaginative minds. And we become more solution focused. We can start to find certainty within uncertain times, which of course becomes this great feedback loop that now we're no longer tied into the fear, and fear isn't running us, but we're utilizing fear and actually leveraging it towards creativity. And this is where we're able to reclaim our sense of control and power within our lives, putting us back into the driver's seat despite uncertain or fearful circumstances.